Honest J. Nowak. Coming at you live. Alright. A pleasure to meet all at last, and welcome to basically the final outing that I will be having for today's marathoning session on HJN Graphix. And so, let's just get on into it, shall we? I probably will suggest that a few more days worth of marathoning might clear all this up, so that way I can have an easier transition, pretty much, just to get all the way to the very end of the season without many screw-ups. So, today though, we're going to focus on something a little different here. If you remember Uncharted 4, A Thief's End, it's the 4th official outing of the series. But yet, you probably would know that between 3 and 4, 2011 to 2016, there have been a few other titles out there. But this one takes place right after the events of Uncharted 4. The Lost Legacy. This was released in 2017, a full year after Uncharted 4, A Thief's End. So it's safe to say that they must have spent some time working on both of these games, and having them released 1 year apart seems to justify it a bit more. The fact that they spent a lot of time working on the official Uncharted 4 as well as The Lost Legacy, which would be a natural continuation to the story inside the main canon. Uncharted, The Lost Legacy does in fact take the same sort of mechanics, gameplay, playability, graphics, sound design, gun selection, although in this game, you tend to have a different variety of weapons to choose from. Not all the types that you would find in the 4th game, but The Lost Legacy is something I would also consider to be a good game. Pretty darn good. And the fact that I was able to get a lot of money in my hands, have a lot of good credit built, so that way I could spend some of it on many games throughout 2020, I tell you, there was really a lot of great stuff that happened in 2020. I couldn't even make this stuff up if I tried. But Uncharted: The Lost Legacy, being one of dozens of titles I played throughout 2020, was certainly a pretty good selection that I made. But in all sense, I will probably say that it's probably not as good as Uncharted 4. And the main reason for that is, well, it's a bit different. You don't technically have Nathan Drake at your control. Instead, you have another character who has been known throughout the original Uncharted trilogy, Chloe Frazer, whom of course has accompanied Nathan on various adventures over the years, but now Frazer is alone. Although, Nadine Ross, if you remember being a main antagonist from Uncharted 4, is now basically partnered up with Chloe to go find some treasure out there in India, as opposed to, well, Henry Avery's treasure, which was discovered by the Drakes and Victor Sullivan and company, pretty much. So you can really say that this is a bit of a different step, a different sort of way to back off from the original canon and move on to another potential candidacy for a whole new series of adventures and a whole new line of sequels going forward. And with all that we've been able to hear about, the idea that there could be an Uncharted 5 on the PS5, I don't necessarily see how that's actually going to work, but the thing is, the Uncharted series has gone on pretty long. And when you think about it, this is yet another example of a 10-year anniversary taking place. Uncharted: The Lost Legacy was released in 2017. Uncharted: Drake's Fortune, the first ever game in the series by Naughty Dog, was released in 2007. So this is another big-time example of a 10-year anniversary taking place. And we're going to be seeing a bunch of 10-year anniversaries taking place throughout this whole decade. I possibly cannot wait to see Nerf Secret Revealed turn 10 years old in 2023, but when you really get down to it, in this particular case of a 10-year anniversary, I'd say this is pretty well perfected. Being a big series of advancements, it's just huge to see a 10-year difference between two different consoles, as this was primarily released as a PS4 title, although on the PS5 we're probably going to be getting a more graphically enhanced port of Uncharted 4. But I can't necessarily point if this is also going to be available on the PS5, but we'll see down the line. Because We still have all the controversies relating to Sony's big-time release of the PS5 that should have taken place. Well, it kind of did last year. But here, it's almost like a fad. So, that's probably another good reason to hate 2021 instead of 2020, because if I could count all the bad problems I've encountered in 2020 or what I've gotten to learn about throughout 2020, then I could basically have them listed on one hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's all you need to hear, pretty much. Everything else is pretty much negligible and easy to avoid. But by all means, Uncharted: The Lost Legacy, a game that stars Chloe Frazer and Nadine Ross, both of whom are played by the same actors whom we've known over the years, is still a good shooter game by any means. You do have a bit of a different selection of weapons, you have yourself a different story altogether, a whole new main antagonist to fight down, and of course by the end, Nadine, Chloe, as well as Sam Drake, who would eventually make an appearance in the game, but not until closer towards the end, of course, ends up joining along with them, bound on a train, just like what happens in Uncharted 2, Among Thieves. But here, it's a bit different. Again, instead of a mountaintop, you have yourself a bit of a ravine with a broken bridge. But anyways, I will just go ahead and clarify that while this is a good title, we're probably not going to be seeing any more official releases in the Uncharted series anytime soon. And I don't necessarily know what Naughty Dog is currently planning up until this point, but because they made a release last year with The Last of Us Part 2, it's clear by now they're probably going to start doing some more work on other projects other than Uncharted, because after all, a lot of companies out there are looking forward to doing other sorts of projects, more original projects to try and appeal to different audiences. It's kind of like when Pixar has moved on from Toy Story to Monsters Inc. to Finding Nemo to The Incredibles to Ratatouille to Up to Cars to Onward, Soul, and Luca, pretty much. They've basically gone on from a long-running series to more original projects in more recent years. And it's becoming a little more abundant these days. Maybe Naughty Dog might create another new original series in which that it might have its own line of sequels take place. We'll see what happens in the future. But until any of that happens, let me just tell you, this has been quite a ride already. I feel like I've exhausted my lungs right here, but that's it for right now. But if you want to see more of that on my channel, then make sure that you like, subscribe, comment, follow me on social media, and stay on the Hollywood side.